your nose needs to be forward of the golf ball in impact. But when you try to help something up and you start tilting backwards to do it, you're starting to move your low point behind the ball. And there we go. Now we have our chunk and skull again. I hate using the term let the club do the work, but let the loft on the club get the ball up and out of the stand. There's some lips that people come take lessons from. You're like, well, that's such a high lip. I'm like, that lip's not even in my awareness. They're getting scared at something that's not really relevant once they understand what the club can actually do. Especially if you open the face, you can get so much height on the golf ball.
Hi, this is Peter Blackmore from Melbourne, Australia, and I play at the Melbourne Airport Golf Club, and this is Golf Smarter number 944.
Mastering bunker play with tips and tricks you can use and myths to avoid with Josh Zander.
This is Golf Smarter, sharing stories, tips, and insights from great golf minds to help you lower your score and raise your golf IQ. Here's your host, Fred Green.
Welcome back to the Golf Smarter podcast, Josh.
Thanks for having me back, Fred. I
love having you back, man. Like the amount that I learn from you every time totally justifies why I do this podcast. People are like, really? How did you start this? I said, I wanted free lessons. And it's like, I figure I'll just talk to golf instructors. And it's like,
we want to talk about golf, that's for sure.
And the way you and I met, I was playing in a charity golf tournament, and you gave a clinic beforehand on short game and bunker play. And I learned so much from that I thought, let's do that again. I wanted to talk to you about bunker play today because you gave me some tips that I remember. And then sometimes I'm like, wait, was I supposed to stand here or put the ball there? So there's so much that we can discuss about bunker play. Where do we start? On fairway bunkers or greenside bunkers?
Let's start on greenside bunkers. They're very different. They're very different shots.
Yeah, they really are.
And I kind of look at bunkers, it's kind of like its own little sport, own little game within a game. Almost always there is a big misconception in bunker play. And that is that you want to hit behind the ball. And I'd like to clarify that and say it's not hitting behind the ball, it's entering the sand behind the ball, but the actual low point of the swing has to be past the ball. So the club should still be descending as it enters the sand behind the ball, continue to go down and under the ball, and actually reach its low point past the ball.
Just like on a normal fairway shot.
Well, on a fairway shot, you're going to hit the golf ball first and then take a divot. Here you are in the sand first, but the club should still be descending as it's hitting the sand and going under the ball. So sometimes I'll bury a tee under the ball and say, let's just get the tee out from under the ball.
Oh, that's a good one.
As a good just little tip. And that gets people to actually try to go down and under the ball rather than hit behind the ball. Because if your low point is behind the ball, you will either fat your bunker shot, hit that old chunk and run, or even worse, the club has reached its low point and is now ascending by the time it gets to the ball, and that's the one that skulls. So when people come to me and say, well, I'm both fatting and sculling my bunker shots, I'm like, oh, it's simple. Your low point's way too far behind the ball. And they're like, well, aren't I supposed to hit behind the ball? I said, you're supposed to enter the sand behind the ball, but no, you're not trying to hit behind the ball. You're actually trying to hit past the ball. But the club is still descending as it enters the sand 1 or 2 inches behind the ball, and then it's going to bottom out past the ball. Then the question becomes, well, how do you bottom out past the ball? What's the best way to do that? And I kind of think of my nose, kind of like the center line of my body, your nose or your sternum. And that's pretty much where you're going to bottom out. So if you put your head or your nose forward the ball, so on the target side of the ball, you're going to have a good chance of having that be the low point. Now, you'd like to have the club descending into the sand on its way to that. So I just put my pressure forward. I'm a right-handed golfer, so I lean my pressure onto my lead foot, my left foot, and then I put my nose forward of the ball and then hit the bunker shot from there. And you end up hitting closer to the ball, but you'll never skull it because the club is still going downward. And those are the really fun shots. People have their moment because like, oh my goodness, that's what I'm supposed to do. They hit that nice high bunker shot that takes one off and then it stops. And they're like, oh, God. So I think that's the biggest misconception that people have is that, I gotta hit behind the ball, so they put the ball way forward in their stance. Their nose is now behind the ball, and now they're flirting with chunks and skulls. And you'll never get really good distance control. Like I say, the first step is get yourself out of bunker, right? Like your weekend golfers, like just get me on the green where I can two putt. If I can make putt, that's a bonus, right? The more advanced, lower handicap college or even touring pros thinking, I want to get this up and down. I'm going to try to hold this bunker shot. So they have a lot of control over the bunker shots. And on tour, the bunkers are so perfectly manicured, and it's almost like they have easier bunker shots than most of us do, because caddies after a touring pro has hit a bunker shot make that thing look like a work of art. I remember one time I was doing some work for NBC at the Ryder Cup, and I'm dating myself, and Tom Lehman just hit a great side bunker shot, and his caddy raked the thing so beautifully I had to give him a compliment. I'm like, that's like a work of art. He's like, if I don't do this, then the guys behind me be super pissed off. So it's just standard procedure for us. But, the rest of us are playing in, bunkers that are sort of partially raked, footprint there. They didn't put enough sand in. It's raining, whatever it is. They're not perfectly manicured. So they're challenging. So the last thing you want is to make a challenging shot even worse by having poor information. More information out there that's around in most people's heads to come and take lessons, at least for me, is, I got to hit behind the ball, so I'm going to play the ball way forward in my stance. I might have the ball forward in my stance, but it's not forward of my center line, because I put so much pressure onto my lead side. So that's the first thing I would say for most people out there is be careful where your low point is.
Yeah. And how, that's interesting, because that's different than a fairway shot in the sense that you said you hit the ball first, but you got to bring the low point of your swing even lower, right? And so how do you position your body?
So now you want to create that steeper angle, right?
Oh, okay.
Shot requires a steeper angle, or what I call the V-shaped bottom of the swing. So if you think about how to create a steep angle, well, you can do it several ways. You can do it by leaning your weight onto your lead foot, lowering your lead shoulder will make the club go up more and come down steeper. You can have more forward lean in your shaft. That creates a steeper angle of the golf ball. You can hinge your wrists more to get the club up and out of the sand a little bit quicker. You can narrow your backsplit. There's this whole menu of steep angles that players used to be effective out of the bunker. And that creates an angle that's going to bottom out more under the golf ball. Whereas if I was trying to hit something off the top of the sand, like a fairway bunker shot, I might go for some more shallower angles. Ball moves a little bit more forward in the stance. The width of the swing, the width gets where the width gets wider, if you will. I might have less wrist hinge going back. I'm doing a lot of things at shallow angle approach there versus an green side bunker where I'm looking for more of a steep bottom of the swing.
That means there's a lot of information to process before you step into the bunker.
And there's also, I think we talked about this before, I call it doing the math before you hit a shot. Like the first thing you got to do is you got to assess the lie. Okay, what is this lie telling me about what's going on? What's the story this lie's telling me? Are the bunkers hard packed? Is it fluffy sand? Did they just throw a bunch of new sand in the bunker? What kind of club do I have that's going to have the proper bounce to get out of the bunker in this situation? What effort level do I need to create the proper distance control out of this shot? So, for example, let's say I get in a bunker that's got very little sand. It's maybe there's been a little bit of moisture, some dew, maybe a little bit of rain. It's a little harder packed. Well, I know I can't open the face as much because then the bounce will skip right into the back of the ball. I'll skull it, so I'm going to have to square the face up a little bit more. But now that affects my distance control because the ball's going to come out faster. So now the effort level of my swing has to change. So this is all part of what's going on in my head. I look at the lie, figure out, what's the ideal shot I'd like to hit? What can I hit from this lie? And what does this lie tell me about what I can and can't do? What's the effort level I need? How much can I open the face, or how much do I have to square up the face? Do I even have to, is it buried? Do I even have to close the face maybe a little bit or create a steeper angle? But there's all this math that goes on in my mind before I hit this shot, or even when I'm teaching different lies out of the bunkers, because you can't go in there with a one size fits all mentality, because if you do that, you're going to be successful at very, very small part.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, there are bunkers that, I play public courses. And so sometimes if we had moisture or the sprinklers were on with something, but it's just like hard pan. It's just, and then it's like, well, am I treating this like a bunker shot, or am I treating this like a chip shot? I mean, we're still on a greenside bunker here.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting. I mean, if you're really interested in being very successful at a bunkers, you need to understand what's under your ball. Like when I used to be back in the 90s, when I was a touring professional, I was playing golf all over the world. During the practice rounds, I would literally grab my club and start digging in the bunker, seeing what's underneath this. What am I playing on this week? How's the ball come out of the bunker this week? That was a huge part of kind of the investigation process of being a good player, is understanding what the course conditions are the week that you're playing. So that's super important. And I kind of chuckling a little bit here because I have this one affluent student who he plays all over the place. So he said, when I'm a Titleist guy, I'll put a plug in for Titleist. They make Bob Bokey makes great wedges. And so he said, would you order me a portfolio of wedges? But basically, he wanted them all. He said, just order all of them for me, because I'm going to be playing in all different kinds of conditions. And there's, the balance, the grinds that Bob puts in his clubs. Some of them fit certain courses better than others, certain, turf conditions, certain bunker conditions. So there's something called the K grind, which is a fantastic bunker club for sloppy bunkers. But if you're playing in hardback bunkers, I mean, if you remember the old alien wedge with the huge bottom, it's the closest Bob Bokey comes to an alien wedge, and it's like cheating to get out of a bunker with one of his K grinds if the bunkers are fluffy. But if they're not, then you're going to have a tough time, not stalling the ball out of the bunker with that club. So, and then there's the T grind that's like, it's only got 4 degrees of bounce, and it's great out of tight lines with bunkers and tight lines around the green. So, I mean, if I'm a competitive player, I've got my portfolio of wedges that I'm going to look into to figure out which ones are making the traveling team, so to speak, for this week. You can't expect one club to fit all situations, just like you can't expect to set the club up the same for different situations or have the same effort level. There's a fantastic player / teacher who passed away a few years ago named Phil Rogers. And when I was first getting into the teaching business, I was looking into, just learning back then, the PGA Coaching and Teaching Summit. They used to put out VHS tapes of the recordings of all the great teachers talking about bunkers, and Phil Rogers talking about teaching. Phil Rogers was doing a bunker one, and he said something interesting. He said, a bunker shot will go about 1/3 of the distance that the same swing would produce from grass. So a stock, basic bunker shot, if you want to hit, for example, a 10-yard greenside bunker shot, it would require the same effort level that it would to hit a 30-yard shot from grass. And I always thought that was a great starting point to help, the weekend golfer understand, like, how much effort level do you really need to get this ball? But that's also based on making good content. So I've always said, that distance control comes from good contact and paying attention, right? So if you want to chip it really well, you first have to have good contact, but then you also have to pay attention to how far the hole is, where to land it, how much it's going to roll, is it uphill, is it downhill. All that information is a matter of paying attention. And a lot of times I get frustrated when people make practice swings without looking at the hole. Like, you look at the hole, see where you're going to land this ball, how's it going to roll, how far, there's this intuition that we have as human beings that helps us understand, I'm going to throw all this, 3 feet away. I don't wind up and shift my weight. I just toss it to it really softly, right? So it's the same thing when you do in short game shots. It's understanding what effort level it takes. But you need to have, I go back to the first thing we talked about, which is you need to know how to make proper contact in the bunker, because about that, you don't really know what effort level to put in there, because if you're chunking and sculling, your brain's like, confused. Well, I hit that one too hard. No, you didn't hit it too hard. You bellied it. You just sculled it over the green. In fact, you really have enough effort level to really hit that shell. You just bottomed out behind the ball, caught it on the ups.
All right, let's take a break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about amateur players and their game and the myths that they have in their head that ruin every bunker shot they take. And we'll be back right after this. So yeah, a lot of time you'll be talking about these professionals who did this and this, kid who's on your team, and you're getting him ready for high level competitive play. I think that when I watch the people that I play with, amateurs, and recreational players that are, mid handicap, it seems like everyone's trying to lift the ball out of the bunker with their clubs. And we've been talking a lot about that lately, about lifting the ball as opposed to making that contact. Go ahead.
There's this instinct that you want to lift the ball out of the bunker. And
sure,
that the tendency, if you do that, is to tilt backwards. To throw something up, you tilt backwards. Now, remember, we go back to the first part of our conversation. Where should your nose be? Your nose needs to be forward of the golf ball in impact, but when you try to help something up and you start tilting backwards to do it, you're starting to move your low point behind the ball. And there we go. Now we got our chunk and sculling in. So yeah, I hate using the term let the club do the work, but let the loft on the club get the ball up and out of the stand. And you'll be amazed. There's some lips that people, come take lessons. You're like, well, that's such a high lip. I'm like, that lip's not even in my awareness. It's not even close. And then I'll take a video of them hitting a shot, and the ball's clearing the lip by like 3 or 4 feet. It's like, they're getting scared at something that's not really relevant once they understand what the club can actually do. Especially if you open the face, you can get so much height on the golf ball if you have the proper content. Another thing, if you don't mind me going on with a different thought here about bunker play, but
I'm real good on going in different directions. Yeah. Go for it.
This is something that I would say another one of my pet peeves of bunker play is people think they need to cut across the golf ball and have an open stance. So they think, well, I've opened my club face, so I now have to open my stance. Right? If I'm a right-handed player, well, I open the club face, it's pointing to the right, so now I need to aim my feet to the left. And then we have this angle that they're trying to hit the golf ball at, so out in and across the golf ball. And when I was a rookie teacher back in the early 90s, I hated teaching bunker because I could not help people with the traditional open your club face, open the stance, swing across, swing out to in. And at one point I said, this is so bad. Both my own bunker game trying to do this and teaching it. I said, I'm going to do the opposite. I'm going to close my stance. And I still open the face, but I'm going to close my stance. And I start hitting these beautiful high soft bunker shots with square spin, no sides. I hate the ball kicking on the green and kicking off to the right because I came across. So, God, I can't remember how many years ago it was, but the Golf Channel. I was at a teaching event, and the Golf Channel asked me to do a bunker video. And so I set up a line for my feet, which was dead square. I opened my club face, but then lowered my handle. For those of you who understand, and when you lower the handle, the face closes, so that offsets the open face. So I had a nice line of bunkers. So I said, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to have a square stance with my feet flared out, but no open stance. I'm going to lower the handle. I'm going to lean to my lead side, so my nose is forward of the golf ball, and I'm going to swing into it on plane, not outside it. And they entitled it Unconventional Bunker Advice was the name of the video.
Wow.
Basically, it was, I don't know if you want to say it was ahead of its time, but I think its time had come that so many people were struggling with this open the face, come outside it. And then I'm watching golf on TV one day, and Johnny Miller says, you notice the tournament pros these days, they don't open their stance anymore on bunker shots. And I started laughing to myself. Of course not, because that old way of teaching the open the face outside in swing was horrible. I don't know who started it, but I feel like shaking them and saying, what did you do? You set bunker play back, God knows how many years. So I'd say another piece of advice I have to people is try squaring yourself up with your stance in the bunker and not aiming way open. I would say experiment with lowering the handle to get the club face back to square rather than trying to open your stance to do that.
Let me stop you for just a second when you say, I want to clarify, lower the handle. So for a right-handed golfer, does that mean going forward or?
Lower the handle. Like if you set up in your normal stance, you just said, okay, I'm going to let the club fall to the ground, the handle would fall towards the sand. I want it lowering towards the sand. So if you open a club face
down,
the face to the right, whenever you lower a handle, the face points to the left. So they offset each other. And I'll show people with one of those.
I see what you're saying.
Those lie angle magnets. And I'll show, okay, you lower the handle, the face points left. It's kind of like what happens when the ball's above your feet, right? The club face points to the left as a right-handed player because the handle's been low, right? Mm-hmm. Face points to the right and the handle's higher on a line where the ball's below your feet, right? So whenever you lower a handle, it points the face to the left. So that will offset the fact that your face is open. Now all you have is a lofted. So if I start with my 60 and I open it up to 80 degrees, I can lower the handle to make that club face still point at the target. Now I have an 80-degree lofted club and it's dead square. High ball comes out straight and rolls straight. It doesn't have that quirky little kick to the right that you see a lot of people who swing out to it. Right? So now that helps so much on distance control. The only redeeming value of having an outside-in swing in the bunker is the fact that an outside-in swing is a steep angle and that helps you get down into the sand. Other than everything else about it is awful. So I can create so many different ways of getting a steep angle in the sand without being outside it. Right? Like I said earlier, I could lean more weight to my left side. I could pop my wrists up sooner. I could lower my lead shoulder more. I got a ton of tricks to do that. And I can still have that ball coming out with what I call square backspin. So one of my coaches when I was a touring professional was Rick Rowe, who was used to be at the San Francisco Golf Club. And great guy, great teacher. And he was playing in the era of Lee Trevino. And he said, I'd like to sit at Lee Trevino's bag and watch him practice because he would hit his wedges with square spin. And I never forgot that because when you have square spin, in other words, true backspin, where there's not a kick to the right on your ball, that's a really easy shot to control, especially what happens after the ball lands on the green. Because I'm trying to hold my bunker shots, right? Why would I want to have to try to get my ball to start left so it could kick to the right and carry them into the hole that way? It's like, just get it to roll straight. So in order to do that, we need a pretty square backspin. So I swing on a good plane inside to inside rather than outside to inside. And I have loft on my face because I've lowered the handle and opened the face. I've got a lofted square face and an on-plane swing. It produces beautiful square spin bunker shots.
So does it make any difference on your swing if you're there's so many different variables involved here, like being close to the front edge of the bunker where you're on an upslope, or being in the back of the bunker where there's a downslope. We're just talking about a nice fluffy lie here, but then, we've all, I mean, the number one piece of advice would be don't go in the bunker. But this is golf and it's going to end up there sooner or later.
I tell people this all the time. If you hit it in the bunker, you're pretty close to the green. You could have hit that out of a shot. The bunker right around the green. So don't try to avoid the bunkers. Become a good bunker player. I get in the bunker, I'm like, oh, cool.
That's just too logical, Josh. Come on.
Yeah. Bunkers, you're going to start avoiding greens. It's really hard. It's really hard to good players hit it in bunkers. That's what they do because bunkers are right next to the green, which is where the flag is. So I don't ever tell people try to avoid. I don't think I've ever uttered those words. Try to avoid the bump.
Oh, I can go back and erase that if you want me to.
You just got to you got to face the challenge. It's part of the game, and that's make it a strength. Just understand it's not like it takes an amazing athlete to hit a bunker shot. It's just, you just have to have the right information. It's like,
Right.
just building skills here as golf instructor. We build the skill of being a bunker player, but it is a different skill than almost any other shot in golf.
Yeah. Yeah. That's why I wanted to focus on it. And, it's not just the right information. It's the right attitude. Because if your ball goes in the bunker and you're like, oh God, I hate playing in the bunker. Oh, this is going to be right. If you do that, you're doomed. But if you go into it going, this is going to be fun. I love these shots. This is going to be great. It's going to help. You may not have success, but it's going to help.
I think a lot of times when people hit in the bunker, they think, okay, well, now my score is going to go up. And so they have a bad attitude, right?
Right.
So I could have been on the green, but not on the bunker. So I have to figure out how to save myself from this situation. And it's like, if you think of, and this would go down a totally different avenue about how to, mentally play the game.
Yeah.
I like what you just said about, hey, I've got this cool opportunity, or I could hold this, or I can't wait to see what kind of challenge I have here. And it's an individual event in this day of golf you're playing that you get to get this cool shot. I was doing a playing lesson yesterday, and I hit a bunker shot, which I thought was really good. And it just kept rolling, and then I went down this embankment, and then I had a lob shot with no green to work with that. And if I hit it a little short, right back to my feet. And my shot to the green, which is purely up, and it caught the top of the bunker, went in. I hit this beautiful bunker shot, exactly how I wanted to, but I misjudged it. When the green was going away from me, and I didn't take that into account. It kept trickling. I hit the bunker shot. Everybody in my group's like, oh, great shot. And they're like, uh-oh. Easy lob shot to about 10 feet, and I hit a beautiful putt, and I missed the putt. And I looked at the plane, like this guy giving a play lesson, I'm like, I think I just hit 5 really good shots on that par 3. And I just laughed. I'm like, man, this game really, it's just really something. Hit a bad shot on the hole. I made a double on a 155-yard par 3, which should be a great birdie opportunity where you get to hit a ball from the tee to 155, which is just a couple 8-iron. And I might first hit 15 feet and boom in the bunker. But you know what? It's like, if you got to take it. You got to just like that. That's golf. Another time hit that edge of that bunker, kick right next to the hole, I make it 2. It's like that. So
well, all I can say is, Josh, welcome to our world.
Yeah.
We'll be back right after this. Okay, we've talked about ball being back of the bunker, ball being front of the bunker.
We haven't actually talked about that. We mentioned that. I didn't.
We mentioned, yeah. Well, I do want to, figure that out because you've got different attacks going on here, correct?
So I use this. I use this visual where I just hold up the club between my thumb and my index finger, and I just let it sway back and forth. And I show people this is a club swing. There's a point where the club is swinging downward, and there's a point where the club is swinging upward. Mm-hmm. The lowest point is directly underneath the top end of the club. So if you can visualize the club swinging back and forth like a pension, right? Okay. So if we're on an uphill line, right? You're on the upslope. Well, how do you want to set the club so it can swing up the slope? The handle should be behind the club head. In other words, you need to have a shaft that's leading as a right-handed player to the right or away from the target so the club can swing up the hill.
On your setup?
On
the swing?
Yeah.
On the setup.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So it can swing up along the slope. If I'm on a downhill line, then I want to have a forward-leading shaft because that would mean the club is swinging downward at the moment of the strike. Right? And then it's a little tricky when you're doing an uphill line. I had a great discussion with James Seekman about this. He's a fabulous short game teacher. We were doing a school together, and we were talking about uphill lines out of bunker. And he said, I don't really like my students to have their shoulders along the slope, with parallel to the slope on bunker shots, because if they happen to fit one, that's double, triple. He's teaching touring pros. You're missing cuts if you do that kind of stuff. So And I said, I agree, because the other thing is when you tilt your shoulders with the slope on an uphill lie, falling backwards away from the target, which now puts the lope like way too far behind the ball, which we talked about earlier in our podcast. So what I do is I set my shoulders not with the slope, but slightly into the slope so the club has a chance to get into the ground. But the handle's back enough so it doesn't dig into the ground too much. So set up for uphill lies. Write this down for you folks. Shoulders not parallel to the slope, slightly into the slope, and the handle back. Okay. Now, when you're doing a downhill lie, usually in the back of the bunker on a downslope, you need to get your shoulder big time over the slope, or even more, because you try to dig down into it, and you want the handle forward. The ball will come out low. That's just part of the deal. So if it's going to come out low, you need to understand how it's going to react once it gets to the green, and the pin is not always an option as far as where you're aiming. So when you hit, I think those uphill lies in the front of the bunker, those are easy. You can score it with those. The downhill lies, I'm thinking, if I can get a 3 out of here, I'm doing a great job. Get it somewhere where I can get down to 2 from wherever it is. Because that's where triple, doubles, and triples happen from on those downhill lies out in the bunker.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But then you have the issue of the flag being close to the bunker and then the flag being on the opposite side of the green from the bunker.
When it's on the opposite side of the green, the downhill bunker shot's actually not a bet, because the ball comes out low and release.
And just keeps going, yeah.
That when the pin's tight to the bunker and you're on an uphill slope, that's actually super easy. It just pops up really high and lands really softly. So those are kind of green light situations. But the opposite, if the pin is tight to the bunker and you're on a downhill slope, you got no green to work with. Somehow figure out how to get it in a position where you can get down 2 strokes after that.
Yeah.
Just take your bogey and get out of there and live to fight another day. Don't try to get cute with that one. So leave it in the bunker,
right?
Sell it over the green to the other bunker, and then now you're just making a huge number.
Yeah. So just accept the fact that you're probably not going to par this hole unless it's pure luck, and that happens in golf, and that's why we keep going back.
Yeah.
But yeah, because if you try to get too cute with something, especially that's real close to it, you're going to not even get out of the bunker. And then you'll really be frustrated and angry, and then it'll just show up in the next shot. And then what happens, which I've not only seen multiple times, I've done many times, is you try to hit the ball out of the bunker, it stays in the bunker, and you don't take your full setup again. You just walk up to it and swing and swing and swing and swing, right? Then your frustration gets in the way.
Right. One of the things that we talk about a lot in this is just having the proper information is a huge first step.
Yeah.
I think it's a bummer when you go in there trying to do one thing and expecting that one thing's going to work. You need to be able to adjust to all these different situations. And a lot of that comes from just going and doing. That'll work. That didn't work. Ooh, I can do it when I do this. Oh, this is the effort level I hear. It's like, you see that the people who sport bunkers, they spend a lot of time practicing in bunkers. When Tiger was at Stanford, he and Nota Begay used to give themselves the worst lies in the bunkers and have competitions.
Wow.
That's how you really learn. If you keep giving yourself that perfect lie in the bunker to make yourself feel good, how often does that happen on the golf course?
Not very often, no.
So you're really not practicing for the test. You're practicing to make yourself feel that you can do it. That's like Matt said. It's harder. If you can make your practice harder than the game, that's what great coaches do in sports. They make practices harder than the game. If you're making your practice easier than the game, you're not really preparing. So don't be surprised when you fail. But if you do what Noda and Tiger were doing, you had a little bit of success.
Well, yeah, you might have had a little bit of success. Well, first of all, they were both playing at Stanford. Yeah. So, all right. So now we've got ourselves there's one hole in particular that I play that the bunker is in front of the green, but it's about 15 yards in front of the green. So it creates this illusion because it's got this the back of the bunker, which is closer to you when you're in the fairway, is higher up. So it kind of blocks where the green is. And you're thinking, I just need to get it over the green. And yet, when you're in the bunker, it's a longer shot, but it's not a fairway bunker shot.
Right. That's one of the hardest shots in golf. It's like that super long green side bunker shot.
Yeah.
That's an interesting shot because I think back to like the strokes gained that Mark Brody talks about, and that's one of the shots that's like when somebody gets in a 40-yard bunker shot. Even the touring pros, they're not getting those up and down very often. It's just a tough shot. But one of the best pieces of advice I can give you on those, you can still play them explosion style. But think about the ratio I gave you earlier, the Bill Rogers ratio of 3-1. So if you have a 40-yard bunker shot, it's going to take a 120-yard swing to get you there. Is that your sandwich? I don't know a lot of amateur players who hit their sandwich 120 yards. I don't. I mean, I've got some pretty good putt head speed. I have my sandwich 100 yards. I'm not going to get it there with a full blast bunker shot. I'm going to have to take my gap wedge or my pitching wedge. Sometimes I'll even take a 9-iron. I'll play an explosion shot with a less lofted club to give me some of the distance I need. Again, if I can make a 3 from there, great. If I can make a 2, that's a huge bonus. But I don't want to make a 4 from 40 yards in that bunker. But those are some of the harder shots. So maybe I'll take one thing back when I was saying when you talk about avoiding bunkers, avoiding those bunkers, not the green side bunkers, but the ones that are 30, 40 yards from the green. Yes, because you're going to do much better from 70 yards from the fairway than you are 40 yards from the fairway bunker.
Yeah.
And that kind of inside / fairway bunker you're talking about. Those are just traps that are just, they're
there to mess with you. And this one is on a long par 5, right? Yeah. So it's hard to get to that green, and so you're going for it. It's like, I'll just put it on the side of the bunker. Oh, you're going to flirt with it.
Yeah.
Bad idea. Just come up short.
When you're birdie, you're making bogey, just a little greedy. That's part of playing golf, is being able to check your ego and play the smart play. Like Tiger and Nicklaus, the two best ever, say, make an aggressive swing to a conservative target. And that's not a conservative target when you have one of those 30 to 40 yard bunker shots.
You know what we say? Golf smarter.
Golf smarter.
There you go. All right, we're going to take another break. We'll be back right after this. All right. Well, what we haven't talked about now, and let's do that since we've kind of inched our way back from the green a little bit with those close ones that are really annoying, but fairway bunkers. Now, is that the same type of shot? Are you just trying to get it out or a few feet, or you're trying to get some distance on the ball, and maybe even if it's a par 4, you could possibly get to the green?
Yeah, a lot of it depends on assessing the lie. What's the lie allowing you to do? What's the, how big is you have to get over, all those kinds of things. So in general, fairway bunkers don't tend to have as much sand as greenside bunkers. They tend to make them a little bit. You rarely get into a fairway bunker that's got fluffy, soft sand. That's usually not the case. I think they want to give you a chance. So in general, what I do is kind of the opposite of what I do on a greenside bunker. So on a greenside bunker, you want your nose forward of the ball. I would say in a fairway bunker, I like to have my nose behind the ball, so more forward in my stance. The shaft ever so slightly backward leaning, so the club will be ascending by the time it hits the golf ball. Now, if it's ascending, it means that you're going to catch it a little bit on the thin side, which is not necessarily a bad thing. So you clip the ball pretty cleanly, you might catch a groove or two lower on the face there, the sweet spot, but you're getting the ball up and out of the bunker with some nice distance on it. I was taught originally to play the ball more back in my stance out of the bunker, fairway bunkers, and I would hit these line drive missiles out of the bunker that could never hold a green, even if it got to the green. Mm-hmm. So I reserve those kinds of shots where if the lie's not great and I have to hit down eye and kind of hit more of like a punch type shot a little back in the stance, I'll do that, but it's always the second choice. The first choice is if I could play a little forward my stance and I have access to the back of the ball and I can kind of flip it off the top of the sand like that, that's what I'll do. And I can get some beautiful height on because we put the ball more forward in your stance, so you can get some nice trajectory on it, get over the lip. And so that's how I'll do it. I also like to play the club face a touch open, which is a shallow angle. Anytime you close the club face, you can think about one thing we didn't talk about, like greenside bunkers, when it's super buried. One of the options, you can really shut the face, which digs a lot. Well, the opposite, opening the face a little bit, is anti-digging. So it's easier to shallow out your impact if you have the face a touch open. It also gives you a little bit more long. So what I do is I open the club face a touch. I'll grip down probably a quarter inch just so I don't reach the ground. I'm not a big fan of digging my feet into the bunker in fairway bunkers, so I don't. I just set up normal. I put the ball forward my stance, I open the club face a little bit, and I catch the ball on the upswing. It's kind of like what I do out of a fairway line when I'm trying to hit a super high shot. You look at like Rory McIlroy hitting towering 2-irons into a green, he's actually hitting up on those balls. He does not have a downward attack angle. So what I do is I have like a very shallow 1 to 2 degree upward attack angle. If I thought my TrackMan, the bunker would show that I was catching the ball on the upswing. So if the handle is the eye of the golf ball, the club head will be traveling up through impact. So shallower, higher ball flight, ball can land softly on the green. That's how I play my favorite bunker shots.
And you said to have the ball more forward in your stance. Are you talking about like driver forward in your stance, or
forward of where you normally play your regular shots? Because it'll be different for everybody depending on where your low is. So I would say whatever you do in the fairway, move the ball a ball or two more forward than that in your stance. Keep the handle behind the ball. Remember, handle forward is a steep angle. Handle back is a shallow angle. Mm-hmm. You're trying to hit something really low. You put the handle forward and de-lop and get down into the ground and just hit a little bullet like under a tree. We're trying to do the opposite of that here at the fairway bunker.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Is the I have to assume this, but I'm going to ask anyway because whenever I assume anything on golf, I'm way off. Yeah, right. Is the sand generally the same sand in fairway bunkers as it is in greenside bunkers?
I think.
Do they maintain it the same way? Is it the fluffiness and
much sand in the fairway bunkers as they do in the greenside bunkers?
Not as much.
Not as much. I found that like most fairway bunkers are. They that's not always the case. I mean, if you end up with kind of this soft, loose sand in a fairway bunker, it's a tough shot. It's a really tough shot. But if you realize the bunkers, it's kind of like being in a waste area or something. It's almost like if I was going to hit a ball off of a cart path, I wouldn't want to be hitting down into the cart path, right? I want to catch that thing at worst at the bottom, hopefully as I'm ascending.
So what is the most common myths that you come across from amateur golfers on how they approach bunker play?
I think we've kind of covered them. I think the big thing is they think they got to get way behind the ball. I'm talking about greenside bunkers. They think behind the ball. It's like, yeah, the entry point's behind the ball. That's not the look. That would be the first one. The other one is that you have to cut across your bunker shots. Those things just make for horrible bunker. I mean, it's like, the other thing is, I don't know if it's a myth, but I see this a lot just in teaching bunker, where people think they have to go down and get it. Now, if you actually think about it, like they feel like their body has to go down and get the ball or dig it out. And what ends up happening when you do that, if you think about it, and say you exaggerate, like you take it up to the top and then you start lowering your body. Well, the sand, you're going to hit the sand way early. Because you're getting close to the ground. And I see that as a big, I would say 50% of the people that I teach bunker shots are lowering at the time they hit. The people who are struggling at the bunker. And the people who are really good at the bunker, they're actually pushing up out of the ground as their arms are swinging down. You're looking at me like you just had an epiphany.
Yeah, that was huge.
So if you did this exercise, if you took a ball in your trail hand, so it's a right-handed golfer, you took it in your right hand, and you felt like you were going to throw the ball at the ball that's in the bunker as hard as you could, like you were trying to bounce it off the bunker, you would notice that your body would actually be pushing up as your arm was throwing the ball in. It's like you're spiking the football, push up out of the ground as you're throwing a ball down. And if you have that kind of feel of downward arm action, upward body action, you can hit some awesome bunkers.
Now, I've seen people take their putters into greenside bunkers.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Is that a good, I mean, what is that called, a Texas wedge?
Well, it's unless there's no lip on the bunker, it's terrible.
Yeah.
But my dad used to play his foursome on Saturdays. The guy could not hit a bunker shot. He'd go to the bunker, he'd just grab his putter, whack it as hard as he could, and hope for the best. And so, 1 out of every 50, I used to caddy for my dad, so I watched, this guy's name was Rudy. He did it every time. And he did the bunker, my dad was going to win the hole. Pretty guaranteed, unless it's some lucky thing. But if anybody could hit a good putter out of a bunker, it was Rudy. But there was one time I think I saw Seve get out of a really weird situation in the bunker with a putter that I don't even think he used the face of the putter. I think he used the toe of the putter. And I can't remember. I wish I had a video of that, but that's just a use of some major creativity, which was he used from his fours, as everybody knows. By Steros' amazing ability to hit short game shots. So I think there was no way he could hit a regular bunker shot in the situation. So he somehow finagled the putter out of there. But I would say, in general, it's a bad idea. When was the last time you saw a touring pro take his putter out of the bunker?
No.
Seems you don't know how to do it. So again, it goes back to just, having the knowledge. But I'd say that if you can have proper information, that's what we're trying to do as coaches. It's like, we need to arm you with the proper information and then coach you through this. So bunker is not going to be something that keeps you up at night. It's like, oh, it's an opportunity for me to have some fun and I understand how to do it. And whenever somebody comes to me for a bunker lesson, I'm like, I'm about to make this person the happiest person in the world, because they usually come in trauma, the amount of failure that they've had. I'm like, I'm going to be a hero in about 3 minutes here. It's so, I guess it's selfish on my part, but it's like, I feel this gratification, like, oh, you want to do bunker? Cool. When I was a rookie teacher, I'm like, oh, you want to do bunker? I don't know if I can help. That's what I'm thinking. I was thinking in my head because the information of how to do it was so wrong. And now we know how to do it. You're not going to see that old style bunker shot. Very, very few players at the highest level are doing it. They're all doing it the new way. You can create steep angles into the golf ball in much, much simpler, more effective ways to help you create the proper impact and the proper distance. So the trauma goes away really quickly. And at the end of the lesson, like we're 2 minutes into the lesson, like, whoa, wow, that's so much easier than what I was doing. I'm like, yeah.
Well, it's just one more instance of, everybody wants consistency, but wait a minute.
Yeah.
There's no two golf shots alike. So how can you be consistent? Think you're going to be consistent if you treat every shot the same and you have different situations. It's gathering that information before you step into the bunker and assessing all the different variables that are there before you try to have your normal swing. It's not going to get you anywhere.
So I know you probably talked to the Vision 54 ladies, Pia Lynn. They're fantastic, right? So,
they're amazing. It's been a long time, and I've been trying for years to get them back on, and they travel a lot. And they're tough.
They're very busy.
Yeah, they're good.
But one of the things they always like to say is, like, you don't want to become a master of consistency. You want to become a master of variability, right? Because every situation is variable, right? So I agree with that. And the thing is, it's interesting. They were out here one time, and they asked our number one player on the men's team, what what gives you confidence? And his answer was preparation. And I thought that was a great answer. There's a lot of things that give you confidence, but preparation is definitely one. So we go back to what we talked about earlier. How are you preparing for being a master of variability? Are you giving yourself the same shot over and over and over again when you're practicing your bunker shots? Or are you throwing balls in random places to say, how am I going to figure out this puzzle? So when I give a bunker lesson, obviously do the analysis of what's going on, help, give them the diagnosis, if you will, help them understand what they should be doing. And then the second part of the bunker lesson, after they figured out how to hit a bunker shot, is, okay, well, now let's do different lies. Let's talk about different lies. So usually I'll give a bunker lesson. It'll be like half hour. And the first part will get them out of their, out of the bottom of the well where they feel like there's no hope. And then they're like, okay, there's hope. Now let's talk about the variability, because you've just hit 5 good bunker shots. You think you got it? Okay, let's make it harder now, right? Just like I was saying earlier, make your practice harder than the game.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I always loved about talking with Rick Sessenhaus about his work with Colin Morikawa as a kid. Is it would be situational golf. It's like, okay, I'm going to put 3 balls here. You give me 3 different shots to get where you want to be. Don't just hit the same shot 3 times. I want to see 3 different shots.
Yep.
Love it.
Totally.
Love that stuff. And love talking to you too, man. This has been great. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Look forward to the next one.
All right. We'll do it.
Absolutely.
I need to give you an update to our Royal Adventure to Northern Ireland. And the deadline to register is just days away on May 1st, and we still have space available. Now, we knew all along that we were giving you very short notice when we announced this, and if we couldn't fill the spaces, this trip would be postponed, either 2025 or 2026. So, if you are at all thinking about it and need to discuss, just write to me directly. I really want the opportunity to travel and play with you, so here's some additional time to fit us into your travel schedule and discuss our post-summer opportunity. Because in September of this year, we're scheduling a different golf trip that includes a tour adventure to Portugal. Definitely a place that's been on Joanne's and my bucket list for a long time. This trip will be 9 days with 3 rounds of golf and a lot more sightseeing. Since Joanne doesn't play those 3 days while we'll be on the course, the non-golfers will be taking advantage of spas, shopping, and additional sightseeing. I'll be discussing this more in the coming episodes, but remember, this isn't the last of our travels together, as we've got goals for incredible golf adventures for the next few years. And as we discuss the golf bucket lists, how about Australia? Well, that's where this week's Golf Smarter ambassador Peter Blackmore plays at the Melbourne Airport Golf Club. What made it so easy for Peter to join our list of ambassadors to open an episode of where he's from and where he plays is that instead of calling our toll-free line, Peter recorded the intro directly on his phone and sent us the file. Easy squeezy. If you'd like to choose from 3 great gifts and introduce an upcoming episode, just write to me, golfsmarterpodcast@gmail.com, and I'll write back with some simple instructions of what to do and what to say. If you have any questions, comments, or suggestions for upcoming episodes or upcoming guests, or need more information and want to discuss all of our travel opportunities, please write to golfsmarterpodcast@gmail.com or click on the Hey Fred button when you visit golfsmarter.com.